If I told you that in just 7 minutes you could reprogram the very fabric of your reality using nothing but your breath, would you believe me? Most people wouldn't, because they've been conditioned to think that change comes from forcing the mind, repeating positive affirmations, pasting vision boards on the wall, or chanting mantras until exhaustion. But that is the great mistake. All those methods attack the problem from the outside. They try to hammer open a vault with blunt force. And here lies the tragic truth. Most people will live their entire lives without ever realizing that inside their mind, there exists a hidden chamber, a treasure vault, one that contains the key to shaping reality itself. They will keep pushing on the door from the outside, never knowing that the true key was always within reach, hidden in plain sight. The key is not a thought, not a belief, not a phrase you repeat 1,000 times. The key is not even in the conscious mind at all. The key is frequency. More precisely, it is the rhythm of your own breath. Breathing is the most constant, most overlooked act of your existence. It is the first thing you do when you enter this world, and the last thing you do when you leave. And yet, despite happening 20,000 times a day, most people have never once taken control of it. They breathe shallow, automatic, unconscious breaths that keep them trapped in a state of survival. But the ancients knew something far more profound. That breath is the interface, the password, the biological master code that can unlock the inner vault. With the correct sequence, it is possible to bypass the critical filter of the conscious mind and open a direct doorway into the subconscious, the place where reality is programmed and projected. This secret was not discovered yesterday. It has been known for millennia and passed down through hidden lineages that understood its power. In ancient Egypt, this knowledge was guarded by a figure known as Thoth. Thoth was not simply a god of writing and wisdom. He was revered as the architect of reality, the one who understood the laws of consciousness and creation itself. He taught that the universe is mental in nature, a projection of mind into matter. But crucially, he also revealed a practical method to step into that truth. That method was the science of breath. The Egyptians referred to it as Gateway 111, a coded technique that could collapse the separation between thought and reality. For the few who were initiated, it was not mysticism. It was not symbolic. It was a literal technology of the human body, a way to cross from being a spectator of life into becoming a creator of life. So why? You might ask if this technique is so simple, so powerful. Has it been hidden from you for thousands of years? Why has it been locked away in secret scrolls, whispered only in temples and monasteries far from the eyes of the masses? The answer is both simple and deeply unsettling, because a human being who masters their breath becomes sovereign. They cannot be manipulated by fear. They cannot be enslaved by consumer systems. They cannot be kept running on the hamster wheel of scarcity and desire. They step off the wheel entirely, and for any power structure built on control, that is the ultimate threat. That is why this knowledge was suppressed, why explorers who stumbled upon fragments of it had their reports classified, why entire traditions were dismissed as superstition. Because once you realize that the key was never outside, never in products or leaders or slogans, but in your own breath, the game of control is over. Now imagine the implications. In just 7 minutes, following a precise breathing sequence, you can switch off the noise of your analytical mind, silence the voice that constantly repeats, "This is impossible," and activate a state of coherence where intention flows directly into creation. 7 minutes to open Gateway 111. 7 minutes to stop being a victim of circumstance and start being the architect of your destiny. That is why this teaching was hidden. That is why it was reserved for initiates. But that is also why knowledge, like water, eventually leaks through. You are hearing it now because the time has come for this power to return to the individual. What you are about to discover is not positive thinking. It is not New Age placebo. It is a biological access code confirmed by both ancient wisdom and cutting-edge neuroscience. And once you experience it, you will never be able to unknow it. You will understand that the breath you have taken for granted every moment of your life is, in fact, the most powerful remote control of your existence. With it, you can rewrite your programming. With it, you can rewire your brain. With it, you can change not just what you think, but who you fundamentally are. Stay with me, because the journey is only beginning. In later parts, I will guide you step by step through the exact technique. And in part 7, you will hear the revelation that was so shocking it was deliberately hidden for millennia. A revelation that could alter the course of your life forever. For now, let the truth sink in. If you can control your breath, you can control your reality. The secret is not outside of you. The secret has always been within you, waiting for the moment you are ready to cross Gateway 111. In part 1, you learned that the true key to changing your life is not in your thoughts, not in affirmations, not in willpower, but in the rhythm of your breath. That realization is the doorway. But where did this knowledge come from? Who preserved it? And why do we only find fragments scattered across history? To answer that, we need to journey back in time, across deserts and mountains, following the trail of a secret too powerful to be left in the hands of the many. The origin of the breathing code lies in Egypt, in the temples where initiates studied under the guidance of Thoth, the god of wisdom and the architect of reality. For the Egyptians, breath was not just the movement of air, it was life itself, the sacred bridge between the human and the divine. Thoth recorded that breath carried intention, that every inhale absorbed pure potential, and every exhale imprinted will onto the fabric of existence. This knowledge was eventually compiled into texts whispered about but almost never seen, the legendary Book of Breaths. Unlike the Emerald Tablet, which declared universal principles, this book was practical. It was a manual. It contained the exact rhythm, the cadence, the numbers that formed the access code known later as Gateway 111. Those who practiced it were able to enter altered states of consciousness, synchronize their minds with the cosmos, and manifest reality with a precision that to outsiders looked like magic. But history is not a straight line. Empires rise and fall. Knowledge travels, changes form, is hidden, rediscovered, and hidden again. The breathing science of the Egyptians migrated eastward, passing through mystery schools, carried by sages who understood that what they held could never be made common property. Over centuries, the code found its way into the monasteries of the Himalayas. There, in stone walls carved into the mountains, monks practiced in silence what Egypt had once revealed. To them it was not religion, not worship, it was sovereignty. To master breath was to master self, and a person who has mastered self is immune to external chains. The world outside those monasteries, however, was built on control. Entire civilizations have been organized around keeping human beings in a state of dependency, dependent on rulers, on priests, on systems of trade, on constant scarcity. A person who discovers that they can collapse reality into form through breathing no longer depends. And so naturally this knowledge had to be concealed. It was preserved but only in fragments, only in whispers, only for the select few who had proved their discipline. Fast forward to the year 1921. A British archaeological expedition set out, driven not by gold fever but by whispers of hidden wisdom. Their destination was not Egypt, but the high ranges of the Himalayas, where legends spoke of a monastery lost to time. After weeks of harsh travel through snow and stone, they arrived at a structure carved into the mountain itself, like an eagle's nest above the world. Inside, they expected relics, artifacts, treasures that could be placed in museums back in Europe. But what they were shown was something far more dangerous. Scrolls, written on a material unknown to them, containing exact instructions of a breathing technique that aligned perfectly with rumors from Egyptian lore. The monks explained that this was not meditation for relaxation. It was a weapon of liberation. By practicing the sequence, an individual could turn off fear, rewire their mind, and break free from external manipulation. The expedition documented everything. Reports were filed. But here is where the story twists. Those reports were immediately classified by the British government, sealed away, not because they were worthless, but because they were too powerful. Knowledge that can dismantle control structures does not see the light of day easily. Consider what that means. The knowledge was not suppressed because it was superstition. It was suppressed because it worked. Imagine entire populations realizing they do not need to be ruled, manipulated, or enslaved by fear. Imagine societies where each individual becomes their own architect of reality. For any empire, that is a nightmare scenario. And so the breathing code, Gateway 111, continued to be hidden, whispered in caves, practiced in silence, misunderstood by the few who stumbled upon fragments without the full picture. Yet knowledge is like water. It never disappears completely. It seeps through cracks. It finds new channels. And slowly, pieces of this ancient technology began to reappear, sometimes in disguised forms, sometimes wrapped in mystical language, sometimes in modern laboratories under the name of neuroscience and psychophysiology. Wherever it surfaced, it carried the same core truth. Breath is the bridge, the master key, the code. By tracing this hidden lineage from Egypt to Tibet to 20th century explorers, you begin to see the shape of the conspiracy of silence. The secret was not kept because it was irrelevant. It was kept because it restores power to the individual. The monk in the mountains and the scribe in Egypt knew the same principle. A human being who controls their breath controls their frequency, and a human being who controls frequency controls reality. And so we stand at the threshold. In the next part, you will see how modern science confirms what the ancients guarded, and how the rhythm of breath is not poetry, but biology. For now, remember this. If an empire is afraid of a technique, that technique is worth your attention. We have followed the trail of this hidden knowledge from the sands of Egypt to the monasteries of Tibet, to the sealed reports of 20th century explorers. But the question remains, is this simply legend? A collection of mystical stories dressed up as truth? Or can modern science confirm what the ancients already knew? To answer that, we need to leave temples and monasteries for a moment and step inside laboratories filled with MRI scanners, EEG machines, and neuroscientists who often unknowingly are rediscovering the very code of Gateway 111. The first scientific clue lies in the nervous system itself. Every breath you take is not just a movement of air. It is a direct electrical signal to your brain through the vagus nerve, the main communication highway between body and mind. Shallow, unconscious breathing keeps that signal short and chaotic. The brain interprets it as a sign of danger, and the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight mechanism, stays active. You live in survival mode, tense, anxious, reactive. This is the default state of the modern human being. But when you shift your breath into a deliberate rhythm, something extraordinary happens. Inhaling deeply for 4 seconds activates energy. Exhaling slowly for 8 seconds sends a wave of safety through your system. And holding the breath out for 2 seconds creates a moment of suspension, a doorway into the subconscious. The ancients described this as touching the void. Neuroscientists describe it as inducing theta brainwaves. Both are speaking of the same phenomenon, functional. MRI studies show that rhythmic breathing can deactivate the default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for the constant chatter of ego and self-narrative. This is the voice that tells you what you can't do, what you should fear, what you must remember from the past. When that network quiets, the brain becomes coherent. It stops replaying old stories and opens to new patterns. That is the biological reset button. The monks called it the gateway. The Egyptians called it the key of Thoth. Modern science calls it cross-frequency coupling, the moment when different brainwave bands synchronize into harmony. Consider what this means. Your brain operates in multiple channels. Beta for everyday thinking, alpha for relaxation, theta for subconscious access, gamma for insight and creativity. Normally, these channels play like instruments out of tune, each producing noise that overlaps the others. But during the precise 4-8-2 breathing rhythm, something begins to align. Around the 111th cycle, about 7 minutes in, all these channels lock together. The orchestra tunes itself. Suddenly, instead of scattered noise, you have a symphony. The brain reaches peak coherence, a state where energy is maximized, noise minimized, and intention amplified. This is not mysticism. This is measurable, repeatable neuroscience. And the effects go even deeper. Harvard researchers such as Dr. Sarah Lazar have shown that consistent breath and meditation practice thickens the cerebral cortex in areas linked to attention, perception, and decision-making. In other words, you are not just calming yourself. You are physically rewiring your brain to perceive more, focus better, and choose more effectively. Other studies reveal that within minutes of deep rhythmic breathing, genes related to inflammation and stress downregulate, while genes linked to healing, energy metabolism, and cellular regeneration upregulate. You are literally switching off sickness and switching on resilience at the genetic level. The body is not a passive machine. It listens to the commands of your breath. Each cycle is like a programming line of code, turning off one instruction and turning on another. Even the most skeptical scientists cannot ignore the data. Gamma brainwaves associated with moments of genius and insight can increase up to 700% during certain breathing sequences. Think about that. A 7-fold surge in the brain's capacity for integration and creativity, achieved not with drugs or machines, but with the lungs you carry inside you. When people describe sudden eureka moments, flashes of brilliance or deep intuitive knowing, they are often experiencing natural gamma surges. Gateway 111 simply creates the conditions to access that state deliberately, predictably, within minutes. But here is the most striking parallel. The ancients spoke of breath as the bridge between the individual and the universe, the personal mind, and the cosmic mind. Modern physics tells us that at the quantum level, reality exists as a wave of infinite possibilities until observed. Observation collapses the wave into a particle, into form. The observer effect is one of the strangest, most profound findings of science. Now, combine that with neuroscience. When your brain enters coherence, when your heart and breath synchronize, you become a powerful observer. You are no longer scattered, doubtful, conflicted. You are broadcasting a unified signal. In that state, your observation of a desired reality does not remain a dream. It collapses into form. So far from disproving ancient wisdom, science is catching up to it. The 4-8-2 breathing rhythm is not symbolic. It is not placebo. It is a precise biological hack that aligns the nervous system, the brain, and the quantum field into one coherent frequency. 7 minutes, 111 breaths, a reset of body, mind, and reality. The ancients called it sacred. The monks called it sovereignty. Scientists call it neuroplasticity, genetic expression, and brainwave coherence. Different words for the same truth. Your breath is the master key, and this brings us to the next step. Knowing that the rhythm is real and measurable is one thing, but how exactly do you apply it? What is the sequence? What happens inside you at each phase of the practice? In Part 4, we will break down the code of Gateway 111 itself, step by step, and reveal how activation, integration, and the void work together like gears in the engine of creation. We have seen how modern science validates what the ancients whispered. Breath is not just air moving in and out of your lungs. It is a master key, a biological code. But knowing this truth is not enough. To unlock the vault, you need the exact sequence, the precise rhythm. That is what the sages protected, what the monks demonstrated, and what science is finally beginning to measure. This sequence is the mechanism of Gateway 111, a 3-phase cycle so simple it can be described in a sentence, yet so powerful it can rewire the very foundation of your mind and body. The first phase is activation. You inhale through the nose for 4 seconds. This is not a casual breath. It is deliberate, controlled, and deep. As you draw in air, you are sending a signal to your system. Wake up, charge, prepare. The sympathetic nervous system is gently activated, like turning the ignition key of a high-performance engine. Energy floods the system. The body senses readiness. You are telling your biology, I am stepping into creation. In those 4 seconds, the inhale is fuel, the spark that sets the process in motion. The second phase is integration. Immediately after the inhale, you exhale through the mouth, slowly and steadily, for 8 full seconds, twice the length of the inhale. This is crucial because it signals safety to the brain. The parasympathetic nervous system engages. A wave of calm, balance, and clarity washes through your body. Neurochemicals like GABA are released, quieting anxiety, lowering noise, bringing coherence. Integration is where energy and relaxation meet. You are not hyper, not sedated. You are present, awake, and calm. This is the balance point where creation can take root. Without this balance, intention collapses under stress or dissolves in lethargy. Integration makes coherence possible. The third phase is the most mysterious, the quantum void. After the full exhale, you do not inhale immediately. You hold the emptiness for 2 seconds. This pause is the hidden door, the gap between breaths where magic occurs. In that suspension, your brain naturally shifts into theta frequencies, the state of deep meditation, lucid dreaming, and hypnosis. Theta is the bridge to the subconscious, the canvas on which your beliefs, memories, and patterns are written. For 2 seconds, the conscious gatekeeper steps aside, and the subconscious is open to receive new instructions. This is why the void matters. It is the moment when you are not just relaxed, not just energized, but programmable. The ancients knew it. Neuroscientists confirm it. The void is the gateway. One cycle, activation, integration, void, takes roughly 14 seconds. Now consider the mathematics of Gateway 111. Repeating this cycle 111 times equals about 7 minutes. This is not symbolic, not arbitrary. It is the exact neurological threshold the brain needs to stabilize in coherence. Around the 111th cycle, something extraordinary happens. Cross-frequency coupling. All the brainwaves, alpha, beta, theta, gamma, that normally operate in separate bands, suddenly synchronize. It is as if instruments in an orchestra that were each playing their own tune suddenly lock into the same rhythm, the same note. Noise collapses into harmony. The entire brain begins to resonate as one. This moment is the heart of Gateway 111. At the 111th breath, coherence peaks. The default mode network, the storyteller of the ego, goes offline. The voice that says you can't, the voice that reminds you of past failures, the voice that drags you back into fear and limitation, is silenced. What remains is pure awareness, free from past and future. You are no longer thinking about your desired reality. You are no longer wishing or hoping. You are becoming it. The separation between you and what you intend dissolves. Duality collapses. The observer and the observed merge into a single vibrational frequency. This is why practitioners describe it not as imagining, but as embodying. They don't think about abundance, they breathe abundance. They don't visualize freedom, they become freedom. Think of it like a computer. Normally, you are running outdated software, cluttered with bugs, viruses, and unnecessary files. Affirmations and vision boards are like trying to change the wallpaper on a malfunctioning system. But Gateway 111 is not a cosmetic tweak. It is a reboot. When the cycles synchronize and the ego quiets, you are not restarting the same program. You are installing a new operating system. The old code of fear, lack, and limitation is overwritten. A new code, written with intention and emotion, takes its place. And because this reset occurs not just at the mental level, but at the neurological and biological level, the change is not fleeting. It is embodied. Here lies the most astonishing effect. Intention ceases to be a wish and becomes a command. In this state of coherence, every breath imprints your will not only into your subconscious, but into your biology itself. Studies show that gene expression can shift within minutes of such practices. Inflammation genes switch off. Regeneration genes switch on. Your DNA, far from being fixed, responds like a responsive instrument to the frequency you generate. In Gateway 111, each inhale, exhale, and pause is not just moving air. It is sending a signal into your cells telling them, this is the new blueprint. This is who we are now. Intention becomes instruction. Belief becomes biology. Dream becomes design. So what begins as a simple rhythm of breathing ends as a neurological symphony and a biological reprogramming. That is the mechanism of Gateway 111. Activation, integration, void, repeated 111 times. 7 minutes. A reset, a reboot, a rewrite of self. The ancients wrapped it in myth. The monks cloaked it in silence. Science measures it in brainwaves and genes. But at its core, the experience is the same. You stop being a story told by the past and start being pure potential, a blank canvas ready for the future you choose to paint. In the next part, we will explore how this transformation shows up in daily life, how synchronicities, opportunities, and signs begin to flood your reality, and how the universe itself bends to the frequency you generate. 7 minutes have passed. 111 cycles completed. The breath slows, the body relaxes, the mind quiets. But what has actually happened in those 7 minutes? This is where the mystery becomes tangible, because the changes are not just mental impressions or fleeting emotions. They are biological, neurological, and measurable. After Gateway 111, you are not the same person who began. Your system has shifted into a new operating frequency, and reality begins to reflect that change. At the cellular level, the effects are immediate. Each breath has acted as an instruction, a programming command, and your cells have obeyed. Genes related to inflammation and stress begin to downregulate, turning off the biological patterns that keep you locked in survival. Genes linked to repair, resilience, and regeneration begin to activate, as if the body has been given new orders. In other words, your biology is not fixed, it is responsive. It listens to the signals you send through breath and intention. In Gateway 111, those signals are coherent, consistent, and powerful. They reprogram your DNA expression in real time. At the neurological level, something just as profound occurs. The silencing of the default mode network has opened a new channel. Intuition, insight, creativity. These are no longer occasional sparks. They become accessible pathways. Gamma brainwaves surge, connecting ideas across distant regions of the brain, allowing solutions, inspirations, and visions to flow with unprecedented clarity. People who practice often describe it as if a fog has lifted, as if life becomes sharper, more vivid, and more meaningful. The brain is no longer repeating the past, it is designing the future. And then there is the realm that science is only beginning to approach, the field. Institutions such as the Institute of Noetic Sciences have conducted experiments that hint at what the ancients already knew. Individuals in high states of coherence, states produced by breath and intention, can influence external systems. Random number generators deviate from statistical patterns. The molecular structure of water shifts in response to directed focus. Even healing rates in cells appear to accelerate when exposed to the coherent field of a focused human mind. These findings are controversial, but they are consistent. They suggest that consciousness, when coherent, does not stop at the edge of the skull. It ripples outward, interacting with the quantum field itself. This explains why strange coincidences begin to appear after the practice. You think of someone you haven't spoken to in years, and suddenly they call. You need a piece of information, and a book falls open to the exact page that contains it. You face a problem, and a solution arrives from an unexpected conversation. These are not random accidents. They are synchronicities, the external signs that your internal frequency has changed. The universe is not ignoring you. It is responding to you. The field is rearranging itself to match the signal you are broadcasting. But here lies a crucial warning. The practice itself lasts 7 minutes, but its effect depends on what happens afterward. The universe, or if you prefer the field, will test you. Situations will arise that tempt you back into the old frequency of fear, scarcity, and doubt. If you react as you always have, if you fall back into survival mode, then the new coherence dissolves and the old programming returns. The door closes. The reset reverts. This is why so many people touch a glimpse of transformation but fail to sustain it. They confuse the experience of the gateway with the embodiment of the gateway. The monks understood this problem. That is why they developed tools to anchor the new state into daily life. One of the simplest yet most effective was journaling. Not ordinary journaling about the past, but a manifestation journal dedicated to recording the signs of the new reality. After each session, when the brain is still coherent and clear, they would write down every detail, synchronicities, vivid dreams, intuitive flashes, even subtle shifts in feeling. They documented the whispers of the new reality before they became shouts. By doing this, they trained their nervous system to recognize the signs of transformation. They told their brain, this matters. Pay attention. From a scientific perspective, journaling strengthens the neural pathways you create during Gateway 111. The reticular activating system, the brain's filter for perception, begins to recalibrate. It stops searching for evidence of your old story and starts scanning for proof of your new one. What you record, you reinforce. What you reinforce, you perceive more of, and what you perceive expands. The journal becomes a mirror, reflecting not where you have been, but where you are going. This is the difference between a temporary state and a permanent transformation. Gateway 111 is the ignition. Journaling is the anchor. Together, they prevent the fall back into chaos. They make the new frequency your baseline, your default operating mode. Without the anchor, the practice remains an experience. With it, the practice becomes a lifestyle, a new way of being. So the signs, the synchronicities, the so-called miracles that begin to appear after the practice are not proof that the universe has changed its mind. They are proof that you have changed your frequency, and the field is simply reflecting that shift. The real test is not whether you can enter the state once. The real test is whether you can remain there when life challenges you, whether you can hold the new signal when the old world pushes back. That is the crucible where intention becomes reality. In the next part, we will go deeper still, into the final secret of Gateway 111. Because this practice is not ultimately about getting things, cars, money, relationships. Those are scenery, not substance. The true purpose is far more profound. It is about becoming the person who naturally exists in the frequency of abundance, health, and love. And that secret was guarded more fiercely than any other. Up to this point, you have discovered the mechanism, the science, and the manifestations of Gateway 111. You know that in 7 minutes your breath can reset your biology, open your subconscious, and synchronize your brain into coherence. You have seen how synchronicities appear, how opportunities emerge, how the field responds to your signal. But now comes the deepest truth, the one guarded more fiercely than any other. And it is this. Gateway 111 was never about getting something. It was never about manifesting a car, more money, or a partner. Those are surface effects, scenery on the road. The true purpose is not to acquire, but to transform. The monks knew this. The sages of Egypt knew this. That is why they were careful with whom they shared the code. Because if you approach the gateway as a trick to get things, you miss its essence entirely. The real gift of the practice is not external objects. It is internal evolution. The breath is not a shopping list to the universe. It is a sculptor's chisel, reshaping you into a new form of being. The transformation is not about what you attract, but about who you become. Think of it this way. When you are vibrating in the frequency of lack, of fear, of desire, even if the universe gives you what you ask for, you will not hold it. You will sabotage it, doubt it, lose it, or turn it into another source of anxiety. But when you shift into the frequency of abundance, health, and love, when you become the version of yourself who already feels whole, then the external world naturally aligns. Opportunities, relationships, resources flow toward you, not because you chase them, but because you resonate with them. They are drawn to you as surely as a magnet draws iron filings. This is why the monks described the practice not as asking, but as becoming. You do not knock on the door of the universe begging for gifts. You become the universe. You merge with it. You are no longer separate, hoping for favors. You are the frequency itself, and so what matches that frequency arrives effortlessly. In this way, Gateway 111 is not a ritual of request. It is a process of identity. You are not manifesting things. You are manifesting yourself, 7 minutes a day. That is all it takes to step into this transformation. But do not underestimate its power because of its simplicity. 7 minutes of coherent breath is like 7 minutes of reprogramming code into the deepest layers of your operating system. Each cycle is a line of command. Delete fear, install peace. Erase scarcity, install abundance. Shut down doubt, install clarity. Over days and weeks, the repetition builds a new baseline. You wake up one morning and realize you are not the same person. The old reflexes of anxiety, the old habits of self-sabotage, the old identity of struggle have dissolved. A new self has taken their place, a self aligned with health, love, and abundance. This is the true secret the ancients guarded. They knew that if you give this tool to someone still lost in greed and fear, they will use it like a weapon, chasing objects and missing the essence. But for those ready to evolve, Gateway 111 becomes a doorway not just to a new reality, but to a new self. That is why even now the call is subtle. You are not here by accident. Something in you recognizes the truth behind these words. Something in you is ready to cross the threshold. So if you have walked with me through this journey to the end, make your declaration. Write it, speak it, anchor it. I crossed Gateway 111. That statement is not for me. It is for you. It marks the moment when you stopped being a seeker and became a creator. When you stopped asking and started becoming. When you understood that the true treasure was not the scenery, but the transformation. And this is only the beginning. Because once you cross, the real question becomes, how do you sustain it? How do you hold the frequency in a world designed to pull you back into chaos, fear, and distraction? In the next video, I will reveal the simple but powerful tool the monks use to maintain coherence, not just for 7 minutes, but for every waking hour of their lives. A tool that turns discipline into destiny and ensures that your new frequency is not just a fleeting state, but a permanent way of being.